Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I am here with Dustin Zimmerman, and we are pumped to get going on the 2026 prospect stuff. This is going to be the skill positions on the offensive side of the ball, so the quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. A lot of speculation and a lot of stuff to talk about. Obviously, the quarterbacks are one of the most interesting positions that we will have all season. They get a lot of conversation that might or might not be like reasonable or worth it at this point in the year, basically, is how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, I feel like every year you kind of get that, and you get a bunch of guys that are, oh, this is definitely going to be our next number one overall pick. But then I see like 20 tweets with the exact same verbiage and different players in each one.
Oh yeah,
And
for
it's
sure.
like, at some point, guys, you can't just keep saying that.
Yeah.
One of these is correct.
Let's go ahead and start it up though. The guy that is the presumable number one overall pick might not even be in this draft class. That is Arch Manning from Texas. Arch is going to be the biggest talking point of the year, just because he might not come out. He hasn't played technically enough to warrant the number one overall pick, just from like a fan perspective. But you do see all of the intangibles that he brings to the table, so that's why he's kind of been talked about at the high levels. Very impressive deep ball, absolute ability to move in the pocket, take the ball 80 yards down the field, rushing wise. So that's really cool. Something his like uncle and dad and both uncles did not have before. He has some velocity, and throwing on the move, that kind of stuff that he does really well because he is such a movement type of passer. But there are some cons, like we said, that he has some issues because he has not played enough. I thought the best situation was for Arch to sit behind Quinn Ewers. That's happened for 2 years. Best thing for him, if you ask me. He's not in a rush. He's not trying to get out of there. Makes enough money NIL wise. So I think Arch is going to be one of the biggest talking points throughout the whole season, and if he will even come out this next year.
Yeah, Arch is such a fun one because I'm really excited to see how he does. And like every game except for one on their schedule, I hope he does really bad in at least one of those.
Oh, okay.
Namely when they play A&M.
Oh, okay.
But outside of that, he obviously showed last year he could come in the red zone package. He showed in some of the other games he could drive them down the field. He gets a lot of flack. Well, he gets a lot of hype and a lot of flack, both for his genetics, really, his family history,
Right.
which is fair because we've seen at least one Hall of Fame quarterback. It's debatable for Eli. But again, like you said, he hasn't actually proven to do it on the big stage yet. So I'm super excited to see what he does, though.
Last year, when they played against the three teams that he actually got to play against, they weren't really competitive teams: Mississippi State, Louisiana Monroe, UTSA, and Colorado State. He had a 70.5% completion rate, 900 plus yards and stuff like that. But when he did go in against Georgia and they benched Quinn Ewers right before halftime, and Arch got to play, he had 50% completion rate, 19 total yards, a 12.6 QBR, and gave up 2 sacks. It wasn't like he was obviously supposed to be there in that game and they were hoping that they were going to play better. But when you do have to go in against the best teams, that was our only sample size against teams that were better than, probably the bottom 50 in the nation. So, I mean, Mississippi State doesn't really count. They're the worst team in the SEC, but they're still better than that, obviously. So Arch is interesting. Let's get to some other guys because we got to go. But the next guy is Drew Aller, a guy that I like a lot because of his arm talent. He kind of reminds me of Matthew Stafford and how he like the ball explodes off his hands. He has he absolutely has an NFL arm talent, and he's got a quick release, quick decision making type of stuff. His deep ball is really nice, and I would have thought he was the number one or number two quarterback in last year's class. So the problem with him is it's just consistency. We need to see him completely do it all the time. The added to that, I mean, maybe confidence. Wide receiver core was awful on this team. The only player that was any good was Tyler Warren. He's in the NFL now, so I think that this year, seeing if he can stop forcing throws and really take care of the football and improve will be a big thing for him.
Yeah, especially going off of that, just a quick fact about his 2023 season. He had, was it 25 touchdowns, 2,600 yards, and only 2 picks for the entire year. And then last year, we see him upgrade on the yards up to 3,300, actually one less touchdown, but also 6 more interceptions. So, like you said, he just needs to be consistent. He's shown he can take care of the ball and obviously be productive, but we got to see him do it every week.
Yep. And I love his size and his style of play. So I think he's probably one of my favorite guys just to be like, he's a top 10 pick next year because of those things that he has intangibly. But it doesn't mean that he has to also produce. And so
Yeah.
we saw Penn State go all the way in the college football playoff, do really well. So it's not like
Mhm.
we haven't seen them do really well. It's just can he do it again and then also improve his stock even more based on the last 2 years?
Yep.
Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. I'm surprised he's so high on this list because this isn't our list. This is actually how PFF ranks these guys
Mhm.
in order and who we want to talk about. I put them in order by PFF because I think that kind of looks a little bit better trying to compare and contrast with other platforms. Garrett Nussmeier has been said to be the number one overall pick next year. I'm not on board. There are some things that I definitely don't love. I think he has great arm talent. It's not that. I think he's got good leadership. His quick release is nice, but he's 24 and a half years old next. Okay, so how I do these numbers, he's not 24 right now, but he will be 24 and a half years old when next season starts, when he will have been drafted and the NFL season will start as him as an NFL quarterback. That's old. He's not a great athlete. He's not going to bring extra intangibles that the NFL is looking for every day. Like what the NFL wants to copycat. You want a Lamar Jackson. You want these like really athletic guys. Garrett's not that.
Yeah.
There's so many other guys on this list that are way more athletic and better at that stuff. So that's my biggest problem with him. I think that he is a fun, interesting player. I think LSU got them some great receivers. Nick Anderson, Barry Brown, Aaron Anderson's still there, like all those guys. So I think he'll play well, but it's just, do I want him in the top 10 picks? I don't know about all that.
No, I completely agree with where you're at. He obviously showed some very good sparks, and then he also showed some really down moments. And we've seen him lose his head and his composure is my biggest fear for him, personally, outside of the athleticism risks that you're talking about, which I completely agree with as well. He just has to show, kind of like Ayler in terms of the consistency, but also just his composure. Ayler at least doesn't look rattled. You can almost tell when it's gotten to his head.
Right. And then going to the next guy, Cade Klubnik, a guy that I really like, and I think that has the possibility of vaulting himself even higher. He is on one of the best teams in football, playing in the ACC. I feel like this Clemson team is basically a shoe in for a playoff spot, no matter what. In my personal opinion, he has the pros of athleticism and mechanics and release. I mean, obviously, as a athletic running quarterback, you have like the RPO style, but he also has like the mental to be like continue looking downfield, even when he does take off and run. So I think that's good. His arm strength outside the umbrella throws is kind of how I look at it. If you think of the field as an umbrella, those throws are really good. Outside the numbers, deep outside the numbers, corner routes and stuff like that. I think those are pretty good. And then he might have some of the best plays at quarterback in this whole class. You should go watch Virginia Tech, the sack to touchdown throw. It's freaking crazy. So I just really like his upside as a player, but he does have some serious problems also. He forces the ball. He's got way too many turnover worthy plays. These are the things though that he can fix.
Yeah.
I see that stuff type like fixable because it's a mental thing more so than a physical block. Rather, he can't just get faster, but
Right.
like you're 2/10 faster, but he can definitely be like, hey, I'm going to read the field a little bit better and make better decisions in throwing. So I think that is good. I'm glad he came back. This Clemson team, like I said, is going to be electric. And so I think the sky's the limit. If Cade Klubnik takes Clemson and wins the Natty or goes to the semifinals, I think that he's probably a top 5 pick.
Yeah, he's probably one of the prospects I'm highest on just in terms of all the talent he has. Talking about the turnover worthy plays, he definitely forces it sometimes. He's one of those guys that I want to see if his confidence is going to be his greatest asset or his biggest weakness, where he's so confident he can't figure out, hey, maybe don't make that play sometimes. But his upside is so high, I'm excited to see. And I completely agree. I don't see a way Clemson isn't in the playoff in some form or fashion.
Yeah, they're really good at football this year for sure. They have the best defensive line in football. We'll talk about some of those guys later on in other videos. Like he just has all the stuff that's ready for him to be really good. The next guy is Sam Levitt out of Arizona State, another athletic guy. I think he's a good mover and extends plays. He's not like an elite runner, but he's definitely above average. Like can make things happen with his legs type of player. Got good arm strength, tight window thrower, can rip it. In the intermediate, he might be the best intermediate thrower in his class. Throwing on the move's good. Size and frame is awesome. And then he's willing to stand and get hit and deliver. But his
Yeah.
biggest problem, well, two things. Cam Scadaboo's leaving. That hurts any team that had Cam Scadaboo on it. And then secondly, deep balls. He had a 37.5% adjusted accuracy on deep balls. 18 out of 56 this last year. I hated watching some of his deep balls. Like, they're just ugly. And
Yep.
I think that's the biggest problem with him. But hopefully, he can improve on that. He does have some arm strength to rip it. So I just wonder if there's some mechanical issues there. But that's what I saw. And I was like, oh man, like this guy's possibly a top 15 pick. And I'm like, I don't know that I see that with some of these throws that he's having to make.
Yeah, I need to see that out of him. Very few guys go on to the next level with just being able to do the short and intermediate, even if they're really, really good at it. Especially nowadays with speed kills. We're looking at all these new guys break the new combine record, this and that. They want to see someone who can throw it downfield and be accurate and hit those guys who get themselves downfield.
Right, exactly. Lenore Sellers might be the most polarizing guy on this list, not named Arch Manning, because Lenore Sellers is doing things as a very young man, first year starting, that are incredible. I don't know that his year is I don't think he can replicate what he did this year. That's the biggest part for me. His rushing ability, designed runner, 674 yards and 7 touchdowns. Basically, in my personal opinion, he's the Anthony Richardson mold, but already a better passer. More developed as an arm, which is crazy because Anthony Richardson went 4th overall. This is very much so a ceiling versus floor player. Can you get the same ceiling you had last year out of him? That's the biggest question. But he loves trying to throw it in tight windows. He's mostly an intermediate thrower, but when he did throw it deep, 19 of 39, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And that comes with 14 big-time throws and only 4 turnover-worthy plays. All 4 of them were picked off. That's not, that sucks when that all happens that way, exactly. But there's some cons, though. Obviously, he's still got footwork and mechanic issues because he's not necessarily a comfortable pocket passer, but there's a lot of good that comes with it. And then one thing that I saw that I thought was bad was he holds the ball a little bit too long, and he doesn't really go through progressions well. He rather would tuck and run after he gets past the second read and just go. So I thought those things he needs to improve on. But I mean, Lenore Sellers is really good at football.
I'm interested to see how they coach him this year because he's definitely one of those guys, like you said, he kind of quickly reads and doesn't really go through his progression super well, and he almost relies on his athleticism too much.
Right.
And then, we've seen in the past guys like, for instance, on a very extreme Johnny Manziel, where he does that, and at some point the coaches go, you know what, never mind, just do it. Apparently it works when you do it. But then we've seen other guys do it, and they're getting hit all the time, and it's affecting their play, and it's not working, and they need to follow the system.
The question will always be, is that going to make him a better NFL quarterback or not? Because I don't know. Right. Johnny Manziel obviously wasn't.
Right. Exactly.
So that's one of the big things too. But I think that the mold of what he can do is amazing. And so we need to obviously think about him as if we can get the ceiling on this guy, you are going to get possibly the best player in this class or in next year's class. You know what I mean?
He's going to be very fun in the video game. We'll put it that way.
Fun. Yeah. Carson Beck, Miami, transferred from Georgia. I actually, funny enough, I watched the Carson Beck stuff, and I know that we really were down on him, and everybody hated him after the season. And I'm like, holy crap, this guy's still good at football.
Yeah.
He's a pain in the ass because, he's not consistent, does a lot of things wrong. 60% of his passes are inside the hashes, so he doesn't really throw the ball outside the hash. Yep. He had a much better 2023 and 2024 than 2024. So is that all his fault? Well, I don't know. You lose Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. I think that, going to Miami, getting a fresh start, this guy could actually be there's all the guys from Carson Beck up. Actually, everybody on this list is probably capable of being a first rounder, just depending on how their year goes. Carson Beck's a first round talent if he can get his stuff together, and we see what he did in 2023. So I think that he's an interesting player to watch for sure.
Well, shoot, first round talent. Again, he was originally looked at, or was going to be looked at as a first overall pick. That's what was the expectation. So he's definitely still got it. I think it's good for him to get a reset. I don't know if you have we've talked about it before, but the drop numbers from the Georgia wide receivers last year. But he's also coming into Miami where they're kind of reloading their weapons too, which we've talked about in past videos. So it's going to be a make or break for him, obviously, but he's obviously also not coming into the absolute best situation either.
Yeah, but he has the talent that I think can get him through this situation, basically,
I,
is how I
well,
look at it.
sorry, I was trying to phrase that in terms of like he's got the opportunity to show how good he
Right,
is with building that all.
for sure. Nico Iamamaleva from Tennessee going to UCLA, going closer to home. Family, I don't know. There's a whole weird thing going on there. But Nico, you know, he probably shouldn't be on this list because I don't know that he will come out, but he is capable. Like he has, if he would like to, he is able to come out. I think he'll
Yeah.
probably stay 2 years at UCLA. He had his whole situation with the NIL and wanting to get more money and then not, and going to UCLA, losing money on it, whatever, all that stuff. But he's still a very talented football player, and as he led a Tennessee team to a really good schedule and a really good record and all the way to the playoffs. So
Mm-hmm.
he should be at least on this list and commended for doing that stuff.
Yeah, I think this will be fun to see if he comes out because we really get to see the whole argument of is the NIL money worth it versus staying in college or going to the draft early. And then, with him, obviously, they've made it apparent he cares about the money a lot. So
Right.
seeing what he'll do with that. And also, it will obviously depend on how this year goes. But say he does fall down the draft a little bit, doesn't get great comps to see if he'll come back yet or not.
Yeah, and then our biggest projection player, and Dante Moore out of Oregon, it's all projections.
Yeah.
I watched the spring game. He looked really strong. He's got really good arch and touch, lower layered throws, loves the deep ball. He's got some really cool throwing angles, arm angles and stuff. Like you want to put we have dark horses, of course, on this video, but if you want like a deep, low dark horse to possibly be the number one overall pick, it's Dante Moore.
Yeah.
Because he did not do well when he was at UCLA as a true freshman. 53.5% completion rate, 11-9 touchdown to interception ratio. Like there's a lot of things he needs to get better at, but he also sat a whole year behind Dillon Gabriel on this team. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of question marks around Dante Moore, but we enjoy what he brings to the table on this podcast. So that's a big thing for him.
Speaking of just the projections on him, real quick, his on-3 rating as a recruit, not transfer portal, but recruit was a 99.2, and 24/7 Sports gave him a whole 100. So the potential has been there, and people have been seeing it since he left high school. So
right. He's our last one on this list, but we will be doing our quarterback dark horse. We did these all last year too. Our quarterback dark horse is going to be come on, you know who it is. It's John Mater. We talk about this guy. He transferring in from Washington State. 15 rushing touchdowns. Like what? Come on now. He's Tim Tebow-esque type of runner. Like he's got an insanely strong lower body. And if you ever go look at a picture of this man or watch him like walk around, his legs are the same size as his torso. It's ridiculous to look at.
Yep.
So he runs through arm tackles. He's really good in balance and everything. They had 4 total losses last year at Washington State. One of them came to Boise State. It was 45-24. You take that game away, those other 3 games, they lost by a total of 7 points. So this team that he was on last year, he made them extremely competitive, and I think that's good. He is a gamer. I know it's one of Dustin's favorite terms to throw around. He will be a gamer.
Yep.
He's got good mechanics, good footwork. He's not your typical quarterback, and that's possibly why he's not higher on people's list. But I mean, he's really good. And his biggest cons, he had too many turnover-worthy plays on deep passes. His accuracy is inconsistent, but there's some things that he does really well. He forced the ball a little bit, but I want to see him go from a team like in Washington State that's kind of like a Lane Kiffin offense. We talk about that a lot, where they read half the field and don't go through a full progression. Well, Oklahoma is going to make him do that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and Oklahoma's a little bit better than everybody thinks. So it's going to be one of those things where I think John Mateer makes this team better, possibly 8-9 wins, and it's going to be one of those guys that really should help his draft stock by going to a new school.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think he's got a lot to gain from that move, and obviously Oklahoma gains an absolute stud and a QB in that move, which will really help with their inconsistency at QB last year.
Right. Absolutely. And then we're going to go to the running back position. Starting off on the running back position, there's actually 2 slides for this position. There's a lot of really good running backs this year. It's not as good as last year, but there's a lot of like 3rd, 4th rounders that are going to be needed to talk about. Starting off Jeremiah Love, who is a 1st rounder, not a 3rd or 4th rounder. He is going to be most likely our only 1st rounder out of this group, but there are a couple of guys that can sneak in. 180.2 elusive grade last year, 4.39 yards after contact. He can play in any scheme. He's got insane size plus quickness. Like there's nobody in the nation that's this big but also can like move the way he can. And so he has the size to be a downhill runner, but the agility to make people miss in space. Long speed's really good. He kills angles in the secondary, like he just does. And he can put his foot in the ground and explode. That it's really fun to watch. He's a fun guy to watch, and he jumps over people constantly, so that's also fun. You never know when he's going to try to do that. He has some pass catching upside, but he didn't really get to use it when he was at Notre Dame. But I think Jeremiah Love is going to be the only 1st round running back, but I really like what he brings to the table in his style.
Yeah, I mean, all I really have to add to that is with the jumping over people, he'll do it on one leg too, and the other one being
who needs 2, right? Who needs 2 legs?
We've talked about the kind of wild card that's coming with Notre Dame at QB this year, not utilizing the portal there. So a lot of the load's going to be on his shoulders, and gives him the opportunity to prove why we think he's a 1st rounder.
Absolutely. And then the next guy, Nick Singleton. And we can also group in his teammate, Kaytron Allen. Yeah. Someone said this the other day, and I thought it made a lot of sense. He's basically the lightning, and Kaytron's the thunder. He's just good athlete, open space killer. Like he just absolutely eats up open space. Mostly will probably be featured as an outside zone player, but if you ask him to run inside the tackles, he does that. But he's got good vision and patience, gets up the field really quick. And to me, his calling card is agility. But then I was like, but also pass catching is one of his like really, really special things he does well. He's in the perfect offense to kind of utilize and see what he should be as a 1B. So he lines up in the slot. He lines up out wide. He's insane. It's insane to see him take inside handoffs and then catch a corner route right after that, on the same team. But the problem is Penn State didn't have a wide receiver that could run that same route as well as a Nick Singleton. Right. So I think that's pretty cool when you kind of look at it. I was going to say, we'll go over Kaytron too.
I thought you were going to hit on Kaytron real quick.
Kaytron is a grinder type of running back. He's going to be your downhill runner, and he's going to, get those extra yards, fall forward. He's not a shimmy shake guy, lacks long speed. He basically, to me, is an old man. Like I look at him and I'm like, you're an old man. You're old as hell. He goes out there. He goes to work. Those kind of guy. Very blue collar-esque type of guy. He's got the grown man strength that you want to see. He's not going to wow you in any ways. He lacks the athleticism, but he just kind of finds a way. He makes me think of James Conner. Who I'm not super high on James Conner any year. And then James Conner goes out there and is just really good. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like that's what happens, because he just goes to work. He just, fights through all the issues and everything. So that's why I like Kaytron a lot.
Yeah, they're going to be.
That's Penn State.
There you go. The entire backfield coming back when they both could have gone last year too, right?
Yes.
But I think it'll be cool to see how they do. I think they both elevate each other's games. I don't know if you see kind of a commonality between them and then the Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson duo last year, where both really worked off each other's game and they elevated each other at the end of the day.
There's a level difference is the problem. Like I just think that Quinshon and Travion were just levels better at their individual thing.
Right.
So that kind of makes it hard because I think that Nick Singleton is way closer in the fact of like running between the tackles to a Kaytron Allen than a Travion was to Quinshon. So you know what I mean? So it's one of those things. But yes, the idea is there. The 1A, 1B type, the David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs type of thing is going on here also.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Jonah Coleman from Washington. I think Washington is going to be really good, guys. I really do. They've got a couple guys that I'm like, hey, these guys are pretty good. They got a new running quarterback, and Jonah Coleman is actually just going to get better because of it. He had a 153.4 elusive rating, and he's a power back. Pretty impressive. He's built strong. 5'9", 230 pounds, built strong is how I look at it. He runs through arm tackles. He always falls forward. He does lack some of the athleticism. He kind of reminds me of Devin Neal from last year, you know? He doesn't have that like long speed and agility.
Mm-hmm.
He's just your bowling ball that is going to do well on tough runs. But the problem with him is he's really one-dimensional at the moment.
Yep.
They don't use him as a pass catcher at all. And I love his elusive rating, but I also think it's probably truly lower overall. But hey, he is a guy that really gets after it, and I really like his style of play.
Yeah, he was originally at Arizona and followed Jed Fish when Jed Fish made the move over to Washington last year. And even with Arizona, he was honorable mention All Pac-12 there. And then, fun fact, in high school, he had 58 rushing touchdowns and 10 receiving in 31 high school games. So
Wow.
He was averaging over 2 touchdowns a game through all of high school.
I honestly wonder how many of these guys were averaging that many, because
I was trying to find the ones with like crazy stats like that, and his was the most for only 31 games.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Next guy up is Mekhi Hughes, the Tulane transfer going to Oregon. I'm not as high on Mekhi Hughes as a player. He reminds me of Bucky Irving, and I wasn't as high on Bucky Irving, so there you go. But he's just he was a workhorse for Tulane. He had multiple games of 25 plus rushing attempts. So it's not that I'm like worried about him getting the ball and running as much as possible. He has some quickness and agility as his calling cards. He's got good contact balance. He's a good receiver, but he's just not my favorite build or style of quarterback or style of running back. He's not explosive. 19, 15 plus yard runs on 263 attempts, 3.87 yards after contact. He's going to Oregon, going from Tulane, and he only had 3.87 yards after contact. I thought that was low. His elusive rating was not as high as most of the guys. And I think, he's kind of scheme dependent. He cannot run inside zone, and that's why he's going to a team that doesn't run inside zone. So I'm lower on Mekhi Hughes, but I do think, obviously, he's going to be the workhorse back in this offense, and he's going to get a lot of opportunities. So it was a good move for him.
Yeah, definitely a good move for him to step up. Going from the American Conference to the Big Ten, though, like you were saying, is going to be a huge jump for him. And we'll have to see if those weaknesses get exposed, or he can use his positive features to break through that and improve and really raise his draft stock too.
Right, of course. And then the next guy up is Desmond Reed. Desmond Reed is a Pitt Panther, one of the most explosive guys in this class. 5'8", 175 pounds. He has that shimmy and shake. He is possibly the best at catching the ball, and he might be the best pass catcher of anybody in this class. He's the typical scat back. He brings the juice, and I like that a lot. He brings like that little bit extra that you like to see. So much elusiveness. Long speed is really good. He's just a guy that has to play in space. He can't run between the tackles, but he will be a 1B to a good running back in the NFL, I think. And that's why I think he's a really fun player to talk about.
Yeah, one other thing to add on for him is that he was also a highly touted return specialist. Last year, he was in the AP Press All-America team, second team for all-purpose. And Pitt essentially has in his bio that he is a return specialist, and he was returning punts mostly last year. He had 13 punt returns for 159 yards and a touchdown. So
pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, he brings the juice no matter where he's at. He can run, he can catch, and he can return.
Yeah, 51 receptions last year and 580 receiving yards. That's another. He is possibly their best receiver.
Yeah.
And that's just something you have to look at when you're talking about a guy.
Yeah.
Let's go over to the next 6 real quick. Darius Taylor out of Minnesota, another guy I'm not as high on. Not sure why, but one of the most disappointing watches for me personally.
Sure.
He rounds on all of his cuts. He just all the way around. And so I think his 86.4 elusiveness is a lie. And that's kind of middle ground elusiveness. I think it should be much lower. I don't think he's explosive. I think he lacks some quickness and acceleration. He was just one of those guys that was I'm excited to watch him play.
Yeah.
And then I started watching and I was like, man, I understand why they brought another running back in,
Yep.
They brought what's his name? Turner from Marshall in.
Mm-hmm.
And I know why now, because it's this guy just doesn't have that extra gear or that shimmy shake that what does he do well? I guess he gets a lot of touches and gets a lot of yards.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. But I don't know that he's NFL prospect wise ready for me to be like, yeah, this is a guy,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
So
I mean, he had more yards last year, but he also had way more carries, and his average yards per rush dropped from 5.8 to 4.8, which you obviously don't want to see it drop a whole yard. But you are leaving out his elite passer rating of 514 for his
oh
one completion for a touchdown.
yeah, I did see that play too, and I was like, wow, that was okay.
That was pretty
And then I was
cool.
like, oh, it was just only one. All right, cool, even
Well,
better.
well, it was only one,
Yeah,
but
okay.
perfect rating.
Yeah. Next guy up is a Texas A&M Aggie,
Mhm.
Le'Veon Moss, 4.40 yards after contact. Le'Veon almost made it on our dark horse list because I really like what he does. He's a powerful runner. He plays behind his pads. He delivers the boom.
Yeah.
And he normally takes more than one guy to tackle him, and I like
Yep.
to see that. I think that's always a good thing to watch for, especially when it's not necessarily the body type of a guy where you're like, oh, I bet that guy's hard to tackle. Le'Veon's not that body type. He kind
Yep.
of just does it from his smaller type. He has good enough agility to not be a one-dimensional type of player, which is good. He needs to improve his vision, man. Sometimes his vision is really bad, and I was like, hey, like you're just
Yeah.
running into the back of your guys or running into the hole with the defender. Like, go around. It's
Yeah.
okay. But he has some really solid long speed.
Yep.
So I actually really liked what I saw on film, and I think he did pretty good this year until he got hurt.
Right. That's going to be his biggest thing. And also, the guy who was supposed to be the 1A and 1B with him, Ruben Owens, was out all year last year. So he had to carry much more of the load than he was originally planned to. Owens will be back this year. Amari Daniels got better. So the backfield's huge, but Moss is supposed to be the key, absolute number one this year. And yeah, if he needs to improve his vision, if he can, then we'll just see a lot more of those big plays like we saw against Missouri when he took it.
Yeah, that was an
yards.
awesome run, man.
And that was
that
where
play
he
was
actually
really
showed
cool.
good vision and juked out the safety.
Yeah, he made that safety fall over, and I was like, okay, that was a hell of a play right there. Next guy up is Jaheim White, and I think Jaheim White is interesting because he was actually a backup last year to C.J. Donaldson. C.J. Donaldson transfers to Ohio State, so Jaheim White steps in. The only running back on that team, 134 elusive rate last year. His speed is acceleration and long speed equals explosiveness with this guy. You know what I mean? Like he does both super well. He gets up to speed fast. He feels like a scat back without the stats, if that makes sense. He's not used as a receiver. He split reps with CJ Donaldson, but it was like you have Donaldson, who's a downhill runner, White, who's a smaller athlete, and they weren't necessarily using him correctly, in my opinion. So we'll see if they fix that. I just thought it was bad play calling. But he's going to be an outside zone merchant. He's going to be one of those guys that when he hits the corner of an outside run, you have to hit him now, or he's going to be running for a while. He's very fast, very athletic, smaller guy, but like he's going to be really good at the outside zone, and hopefully they'll use him in the pass game.
Yeah, my one knock on him is just that he's small. He's 5'7", so
Tiny.
It's hard to stay healthy too. That's kind of one of my bigger fears with these guys is one big hit from these massive linebackers we have nowadays, and it's over. So
right, for sure.
But like you said, he's incredibly exciting, and hopefully we don't have any injury issues as with all these guys. But as we all know, it's a reality that we just have to be cautious of.
Right, for sure. The next guy is Justice Haynes, going from Alabama to Michigan. He was the backup at Alabama last year. Alabama did not use him as much as, we would expect a guy to be on this list. He only had 78 total attempts. He's not necessarily an explosive guy. He has pretty good balance, falling forward and stuff like that. He's caught himself a couple times with his hand and like continued runs, which was cool to see. He's a downhill type of runner. He has a really boxy build, is what I call it. He's strong, falls forward. He's hard to bring down, but not necessarily elite at it, if that makes sense. He's not Le'Veon Moss by any means. And he does lack that athleticism that I wanted to see. So I'm actually lower on him just because I don't know that he has the high upside traits that I want. But he is going to Michigan. We're going to have a full season watching him play as a starter, so he might come back even, which I think would be good for him after this year. And it gives him an opportunity to just be, on a team where he's the starting football player, on a team that also likes running the ball. Those kinds of things really help you.
Yeah, he's one of the guys we've talked about in the past, and he's definitely a wild card. The most rushes he had in one game last year was 13, and it was against USF. Outside of that, he never really had, I don't think, more than 8 against any of
Right.
them. And he did have 5 catches also in the Tennessee game. He's one of those guys that you see a couple plays, and there's some, even though the athleticism isn't great, he has some really flashy highlights that you fall for. But it's about putting it together and actually being, the main part of the game plan and seeing how he does with that role.
Exactly. The next two guys, both Texas Longhorns. I really, really like Trey Wisner, and I'm going to have a really hard time figuring out what the backfield is going to do at Texas because CJ Baxter was the backup to Jonathan Brooks 2 years ago. He missed all of 2024 with the LCL and PCL tear.
Mm-hmm.
This next year's backfield is going to be so competitive at Texas. They've got Wisner, they've got Gibson, and then they've got Baxter. All 3 of them. But
Yep.
Baxter has a little bit of like that explosiveness and juice as a 1B, so I expect Wisner to actually start. But I don't really have much to say about CJ Baxter because he missed the whole season. So we'll go to Wisner, who was almost the dark horse in this class because I just think he's very good. He's great, scheme versatile. He's capable as a receiver. He's an elite finisher on runs. Elite.
Mm-hmm.
He just runs through and over arm tackles. Very efficient at forcing missed tackles, and he just wears on defenses. He could get the ball 30 times. I think he could get the ball 30 times and really hurts teams because he just, as the game goes on, he gets more and more and more yards. He's also able to make people miss in space. I don't know if everybody's favorite safety, Billy Bowman, is in the chat, but he absolutely shredded him multiple times in that game. So I think that Wisner is a really special player. And then CJ Baxter coming back to that offense, it's like, man, they've got too many options, and it's a little scary over there, I swear.
Yeah, that's going to be a really fun running back room. As far as, I mean, who do you think is going to have the better running back room overall, Penn State or Texas at this point?
Oh, Penn State probably.
Okay,
but it's because they have defined roles, like naturally defined roles. Like maybe if you said this, like who's going to have the better playoff time running room, it's going to be a lot closer than early year to first like half of the season.
I guess at each of their peaks, who do you see peaking higher?
Probably Texas.
That's what I was thinking.
I think it's Texas over, a really good pair at Penn State. I think all 3 running backs at Texas give you a better room total, which is crazy to say because that team at Penn State's really good.
It's almost like Baxter getting hurt forced Wisner to get a lot better throughout the year because he had to, essentially. Absolutely. And so, it's one of those, it sucks Baxter got hurt, but for the whole team, they're probably in a better position this year because of it, assuming he's fully recovered and everything, of course.
We will hope. We can only hope for that, right? And it happened before the season, so I'd expect him to be. It's normally a 9-month process, so he should have been ready in like March, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he should be fine.
Yeah.
Let's go over to our dark horse. What do you think?
Absolutely. Who you got?
Well, one of my favorite teams this year is the Georgia Tech.
High on Georgia Tech the last 3 years.
We both have. We absolutely. Well, yes, but this year they have an opportunity playing in the ACC. Looking at their schedule, Jamal Haynes, man, he is funny enough. I watched the film and I was like, how much does this guy weigh? Because he looks small, but he plays big.
Yeah.
He's 5'9", 190 pounds. Plays way bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
Still has that burst and explosiveness of a smaller back though, which I like to see. And he has that special shimmy shake. This guy is going to like break ankles all over the field. He gets the ball. He can run he is scheme versatile. He can run in between the tackles, and that offense just goes when him and Haynes can go. And I love this duo. Multiple years of production, 2024 and 2023. He was a little bit more productive in 2023, but it was just because he had like other players running with him. This year, he was the only guy. He's a solid pass catcher, but not asked to do it. I like that part of the game because we talked about Ashton Jeanty last year. He was one of my favorite players.
Mm-hmm.
He was our dark horse last year, and it had to do with the fact that he could do everything. And I think Jamal Haynes can do a little bit of everything. I'm not saying he's Ashton Jeanty. It's definitely not the same comparison, and he's not nearly that good. But he can do all of the things. He's got good contact balance. He's got good vision. He's got so much explosiveness, and then he also plays big and falls forward and makes arm tackles missed. Like, he has a lot of things that should be talked about, and him not being as higher on most people's lists, he will be later on, come December and whatnot.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that is getting the backlash of just being a Georgia Tech running back instead of a Georgia running back. Just not
Fair.
a big enough name school to get that recognition. Guy who played mostly receiver in high school and actually switched in 2023 to running back. And then, like you said, had a very productive year. I'm super high on him just because his athleticism is insane. And with Haynes King and how Georgia Tech runs an offense, he's going to have plenty of opportunities to show it.
He sure is. I'm very excited about him. So let's go over to wide receiver so we don't keep y'all forever. Wide receiver, starting it off, Jordan Tyson kind of takes the cake. He is the number one receiver, and it's kind of almost like I wish there was somebody else, if that makes sense. Like, I wish there was a little bit more talent, because I think Jordan Tyson's good. Don't get me wrong. I think that his calling card is his route running. He really understands leverage. He, defensive recognition, breaks are super crisp, and he's loves the intermediate route and attack in the middle of the field. He's a lineman, versatile. He does a lot of really good things, but I don't know that he has elite athleticism. I don't know that, he had an injury to his shoulder last year that kept him out. And, it's just, I wish there was a guy that was more elite. And that's saying I've probably just been like lucky to have so many elite receivers in the last 2 years since we started doing this. You had Marvin Harrison, you had Rome Odunze, you had Malik Neighbors. And then last year, we got more. So it's kind of one of those things where I don't think he's Tetairoa McMillan.
Right.
I don't think he's Travis Hunter, and that's I guess I'm a little lower on him because he's not those guys.
Sure.
But I'm not actually lower on him. I just wish he wasn't the number one overall receiver in this class, basically. But I think he's good. He's a really good player, and I think he really helps Arizona State and Sam Levitt get better this next year.
Yep, I completely agree with helping. Sam Levitt and him can elevate each other. That's going to be a big connection for them to have success this year. And just going off your, not being as excited about the number one, I think it also hurts that we know the two best receivers in the country are both not eligible yet.
True, yeah, they're not even. Yeah, they're not even on this list.
Yeah,
so yeah, fair.
I think that's something we have to all remember here. Is we know Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith exist. We just can't today.
Cam Coleman.
Cam Coleman too.
There's a bunch of really that are probably better. So I'm with you. Next guy I actually do like a lot, Eric Singleton Jr. He really is he's so explosive. He was so capped at Georgia Tech because of the fact, and he did transfer from Georgia Tech. He's going to Auburn. He was capped at Georgia Tech though because of the fact that it's like Georgia Tech runs the ball. And there was injuries to Haynes King, and he's more used at Georgia Tech on screens and like jet sweeps. Well, we're going to get an opportunity to see him play in a real offense with a quarterback that's going to throw the ball down the field. Jackson Arnold coming over from Oklahoma, pushing the ball. So I think that's good to see. His yards after catch are just insane. And I think he can do it from anywhere. My biggest comparison to him, I see Jameson Williams like immediately. Like that's all I can see when I watch him play. And I love that because Jameson Williams was number 12 overall pick, So it's not like I'm comparing him to someone in the third round or something like that. No, he has like the upside to be explosive in those ways. Athletic, skill set, and speed.
Yep, he's an absolute Swiss Army knife. I'm super excited. I loved watching him at Georgia Tech, and with, as you already mentioned, Cam Coleman going to be on the same side of the ball as him this year. He's not going to be near as keyed on as they did when he was at Georgia Tech because he was the best athlete.
Right.
He probably still is the best athlete, don't get me wrong, but there's other guys who are really good that they are going to have to also key on.
For sure. Next guy up is Denzel Boston out of Washington. He's an X receiver. Like he's just a massive frame type of guy, 6'4", 209, going to be one of your best red zone targets. But he's not just like that typical X receiver that's like not a great athlete, but a jump ball guy. He's good athlete, can move. I think he's a first rounder.
Yep.
I think watching him, I'm like, yeah, this guy's probably going to be a first round talent. Like I think he's that good. Very high ceiling type of player. A lot to see before we are sure on how good he is. You know what I mean? But I think he could be a mid first rounder. He only had like 800 or 900 yards last year. And I think that Washington got better. We talked about Jonah Coleman. add him to this list of
Mhm.
like guys that are going to really make this team go.
Yeah.
I think that Washington is in a really, really nice spot, and they have a pretty solid schedule. They could do a lot of really good things this year.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he had the 834 yards on 63 catches. The 2 years prior to that combined, he had 7 catches for 66 yards. So he obviously took a massive leap last year, and now that he knows what it feels like to be starting and be a bigger part. It should only grow from there.
Right, exactly. And next up is KC, Kevin Concepcion, going to the Texas A&M Aggies from NC State. I don't like seeing a dip in production, and that's what we saw here. He was also graded the 724th out of 1,041 wide receivers by PFF. He had less yards, less receptions, less touchdowns. And one of the big things that I like looking at is yards per route run. He went from 2.32 yards per route run in 2023 to 1.29 in 2024. That's not good enough. So, yeah, we need to get better here. So, transferring A&M should increase. Isn't probably going to increase his stats going to a running quarterback. You know what I mean? So running quarterback only had less than 1,900 yards last year in at Texas A&M, and then production down in 2024. Alignment slot receiver only. I'm just not as high. I'm not as comfortable. His athleticism is great, but how are we going to project him when he goes to a team that's possibly going to hurt him overall? You know?
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at A&M's offense last year and their wide receiver production, and then go, this guy's got worse and wants to go there to get it bounce back,
Right.
people would call you crazy. And unfortunately, I'd agree with them. That being said, they brought in multiple high name receivers, including Mario Craver, and then they have a couple 5 stars coming in as well. So, I mean, it gives him a chance. He's going to be the wide receiver one. He was at NC State, so it gives him that opportunity to kind of reset and show why he was so highly touted going into last season.
Right, for sure. And then let's go to the next guy, Elijah Surratt. Indiana has to have some guys. Somebody has to be good at Indiana, right? Because they did do so well last year. They have to, if they win all those games, like we have to talk about some of their guys who only really gotten over, like Rourke. That it? That's the only one that really ever stood out in the draft last year. Elijah Surratt's a possible first rounder. One of the oldest prospects in the class, though. I don't like that. He is a true possession catcher. Catches with his hands, goes up and gets it, posts up, best down the field. You know, he had 12 out of 19 deep balls, 419 yards, and 5 touchdowns on those. Like he's really good. He's also very intelligent. He's a zone merchant, is what we call it. He really loves and he's really good at finding soft spots in zones. He continues moving through windows until he catches, until he gets open, and that's always good to see. Doesn't necessarily have the best speed or quickness. He really reminds me of like an Alec Iomaner from last year. A guy that can post up and go up and get the ball. Really, a bigger guy, pretty athletically gifted in a like vertical way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really good.
Yeah, he's a fun one. I mean, he went from St. Francis in Pennsylvania to then James Madison the year after, played under Kirk Cignetti, who obviously then went to Indiana and is still under him, and he seems to be doing really well there. So he's obviously poised to have a big highlight year this year. So hopefully he can make that happen.
Yeah. And then the next guy, Eugene Trey Wilson. We're going to call him Trey because that's what everybody calls him. Yep. Played in 4 games in 2024. He had hip and meniscus surgery, so that's not good. 19 receptions, 266 yards and a touchdown in his 4 games. In 2023, played next to Ricky Pearsall, and he was one of the best freshmen in the nation. 2024, he just got better. But he is basically a guy that catches really short routes and turns them into big yards after catch.
Yep.
In my opinion, there's just too many unknowns to be sure what this guy is going to be able to do. Yeah. He's a gadget player. He's coming off of a surgery. When healthy, he's got really good quickness and good hands, high missed tackle rate. He basically becomes a running back after the catch. But it's really hard to be like, yeah, this guy's going to be good, but at the same time, like, what if he never comes back from the injuries and isn't the same player that he was last year or 2 years ago, I guess. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, that's always a fear that I have with these guys who get the injuries, especially the ones who rely on their quickness and their explosiveness. He's
Hmm.
not a guy that's much bigger than everybody else. He's, I think, 5'10", 190. So, like you said, turns the short plays into long plays with his athleticism.
Right.
But he wasn't true for an All-American, freshman All-American from 3 different sources, and then some honorable mentions and some other ones. So he's performed really well. But like you said, we got to see how he bounces back.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna go over to the next set. First guy up is Makai Lemon out of USC. USC is such an interesting thing to talk about. They fall from the. They should not have. They have one of the best receiver rooms in football last year. Just overall. Um, Makai Lemon, Zachary Branch next to him, Deuce Robinson, and then Jalen Lane or Jacoby Lane are
Mm-hmm.
all really good. And now there are a bunch of different schools because they couldn't figure it
Yeah.
out. He
Yeah.
had 3.03 yards per route run, which was good. Catches everything thrown in his direction. He had one drop all year. Contained mostly to the slot, though. He is 5'11", 190. He's a high activity mover. Quickness, agility, acceleration, those types of things. Really good against zone coverage. Moved him outside for go routes because they believed he was their best receiver. But those were the only routes he ran. They were like designed routes for him to move outside to.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. Jacoby Lane has upside also for USC because he's the only one returning of that group. So I wonder what's going to happen there. But just kind of looking around, like it's not as I'm not as excited about USC anymore, basically, as I was
Yeah.
when Lincoln Riley first got there.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this on a couple episodes, but Lincoln Riley just can't get it going in
Mm-mm.
USC. It's like he comes in with a ton of potential. Right now for 2026, they are the number one overall recruiting team,
Yeah,
they're, according to On3. But then you look at their on the field production and they just have not produced. And if they have, it hasn't been because of Lincoln's scheme specifically, or it hasn't seemed like it at least.
right.
Lemon has a chance to upgrade himself, but he's also kind of handcuffed by whatever is going on over there.
Yep. And that's why Zachariah left, went to Georgia.
Yep.
He's basically, couldn't get it going while he was at USC. So I think that's interesting. He was basically stuck in the slot. He had 78 or basically 80% of his snaps out of the slot. Production issues, no games over 6 receptions, one total touchdown, one 100-yard game. Short throws with high yak. Let's kind of explain him. He's explosive also, but he was a 5-star, I believe, coming out, and he just hasn't done it. But they tried to get him the ball in a lot of ways. They just never tried to get him the ball down the field. He got sweeps, he got screens, he got handoffs, he got kick returns. Never wanted to throw it down the field, though, at him. So I don't know what that was about. And so I thought that was really interesting to see. If you just talk about these two guys, like explosiveness, Branch is actually better than Lemon in explosive. Shiftiness,
No.
probably Lemon. Overall long speed is Branch. Contested catches is Lemon. Production is Lemon for sure because the yards per route run he doubles him in yards per route run. So I think it's a very interesting conversation to have between the two of them.
So, thinking he was a 5-star, he was the number one wide receiver prospect in his class coming
Right?
out of
Yeah,
high school.
yeah.
And then USC basically did absolutely nothing with him.
Crazy. It really is
I
crazy.
just don't understand. Like, uh, hey, whatever. I'm excited to see what he does in Georgia, though, especially with Carson Beck not being there. Like, it's just going to be so fun to see what happens next. The craziness that is that whole saga.
Right, for sure. And then we have to talk about the freakiest athlete in this class. It's Nick Harbor out of South Carolina. Another floor versus ceiling player. Production, 26 total receptions, 376 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Traits versus production. Here you go. Here's your guy for the year. His size is 6'5", 235 pounds. His speed, I have a number, which is crazy. Normally don't have that. 10.11 in the 100 at South Carolina. He will be training for the U.S. Olympic team. So all these things are just crazy to me. Basically, I've seen him as a first-round projection based on size and speed, but he has done nothing to deserve that on the football field. So we'll have to see. He's definitely one of the biggest question marks. I've seen him literally put in first rounds of mock drafts already. I don't know. We might have to do it because of just the things that he can do that other people can't. That's just how it is.
Yeah. So I'm, given their lack of production you just mentioned, I know there's a lot of people who've probably heard this guy's name and don't know why. And it's because he was a massive meme when CFB 25 first came out, because his speed was 99, his acceleration is 99, his jump's 98. So you could literally just go, Harbor's down there somewhere,
Yes.
lob it, and aim for the end zone, and you were going to score a touchdown. And that's essentially how people are still rating him and viewing him, even though on the field, none of that has actually occurred yet.
Yeah, we have to talk about him because he is.
Oh, absolutely.
He's probably top 100
You have
prospects, but it's like.
I mean, there's a good chance he does it at some point. There's a reason he's given the ratings.
There's also a chance he doesn't do it and he flops completely.
Exactly.
You know?
But
So
you
it's
have
like,
to
I don't
discuss
know.
it.
He's definitely an interesting player to talk about. But
Yeah.
we'll be talking about Nick Harbor all season, just like if he worked out or not, basically.
Yeah.
If he is a bust, and he's waste of talent is probably the best way to put it, because if you're that big, like there is nobody that big and that fast ever.
Yeah.
Like literally, he does things that people cannot do. So he's an interesting player to talk about for sure. Next up, though, is Malachi Fields, transferring from Virginia to Notre Dame. Big body X receiver, 6'4", 220. He looks big as shit. Like that is what I wrote down. He just looks big as shit. Like he's massive, dude. Tough, strong, has solid hands, like really strong hands. He's not an athletic specimen by any means. Like he lacks long speed, agility, and breaks. Like doesn't create huge separation. He does make the contested catches, but we don't love to see that. We want them to also make separation. You know, you don't want to just do that one thing. And I actually hate. I don't not just love. I hate how Virginia decided to use him. Lots of screens, lots of short routes. I'm like, this guy's 6'4". Like, why are you throwing it out there and hoping he can make two people miss? Like, let's hope that Notre Dame uses him a little bit better than that, and he can hit some more of his ceiling, basically.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting his high school career, because he played quarterback and cornerback and then earned all district honors in kick returning as well.
Why not?
And then he goes and plays wide receiver at a high level in the NCAA.
Yeah. It's good. It's how it works, man. That's how it goes. Athletes will be athletes is how I kind of look at that.
Exactly.
Next guy up is Jeremy Bernard out of Alabama. He's the number 2 option behind Ryan Williams. He was one of the guys that came in from the Washington team when the new coach came in, that I'm blanking on his name. Please help me.
Kalen DeBoer?
Thank you. That guy. Physical style of player, 6'1", 210, passing offense should improve this season, which is good because they went from a Jalen Milroe to Simpson. Yes. The pocket passer that they are going to. Ty Simpson. Thank you. I wanted to say TJ. I was definitely wrong there. But they ended the season well. First 4 games, 55 yards was the most. And the last 7 out of 9, he had over 7 out of 9 of the last 9. He had 70 yards or more. Started to become a legitimate option basically on this team. He is the steady player you want. Wide receiver 2, good route running, will run anywhere, strong on contested catches, kind of does all the things. He's a wide receiver 2. He kind of reminds me of like a lower level Emeka Egbuka. That's what I see. Like he does those types of things. He blocks well, all those fun stuff. So he's going to be a asset on a team as a wide receiver 2 or 3 at the next level, most likely.
Yeah, he's a guy who's also played in a few different systems. He played for both Washington and Michigan State, and then, like you said, leaving Washington to follow his coach, which is understandable. We see that a lot nowadays. And then, like you said earlier, athletes will be athletes. He's also a basketball and track star in high school. So
of course he is.
He's definitely, but it just goes to show he's going to have the speed. He's going to have the athleticism you want to see in a guy like that.
Of course. Next guy is DeAndre Moore Jr. coming out of Texas. There's a full new receiving core in Texas, you know. You have Ryan Wingo and you have DeAndre Moore. Opportunity to become the wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. I don't know how well Ryan Wingo will step up. Obviously, he is in the same conversation with, he was on the same level as Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith coming out. That was kind of like those 3 were the ones we kept talking about. He had 39 receptions, 456 yards, 7 touchdowns. It's really good as a freshman. Yeah. A lot of wait and see. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. DeAndre Moore had 39 receptions, 456 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's what I was talking about. A lot of wait and see, though. He put a lot in the slot. He can step up, but he did have 11.4% drops. And I think that the drop rate has to come down if he wants to be consistently on the field. I think he could possibly be a top 3 round player. But I just don't know yet because he hasn't done it, and he was surrounded by so many other guys. They did also bring in Jack Indries out of Cal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fully new wide receiver core for the most part of like who's going to actually make plays and be the main starters. So DeAndre Moore's an interesting one.
Yeah, I think he has a really good opportunity though, because him and Manning will essentially be spending this entire summer working together as QB with their wide receiver one or wide receiver two, and building that chemistry that you want to see. And then, like you said, the whole receiving core left, or most of it, is flipped now. So he's got an opportunity to get the minutes, to get the targets, everything he needs to prove it.
Yep, absolutely. Let's go over to the dark horses for the wide receiver position. Dark horses. I said it with an S. I put an S on there because we're gonna have two for this position. Antonio Williams out of Clemson. He had 75 catches, 904 yards, and 11 touchdowns last year. Super alignment, versatile guy. He's a good contested catcher for his size overall. Plays bigger than he is. Good. Yep. Enjoys contact. I like to see that. He has positive regression written everywhere, all over him, in my opinion. I know that they have some good receivers at Clemson, but I think that the other two are really young. I think he's the guy that, we need to talk about. Wesco is there, obviously, and I can't think of the other one off the top of my head right now. Bryant, wait, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. They've got 3 legit receivers on their team. But I think
Bryant Wesco Jr.
Yeah, okay, Bryant Wesco Jr. And then the other one was Moore.
TJ Moore.
TJ Moore, yeah. Positive regressive though. Cade came back, which was good to see. Brennan Stool's gone. Strong receiver core around him. He's the one that I think finds the end zone by far the most. And I think that that's going to be one of his best calling cards is when they get in the red zone, they're going to be looking for this guy, even if he's a smaller guy overall. I think that he will be the wide receiver one. And I think that there's other guys, Carnell Tate, who we'll talk about in a second, some of the other guys that are going to be outshined by Jeremy Bernard, by freshmen and younger guys. I don't think Antonio Williams will be outshined by the younger guys on his own team like those guys are, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whew. And then Carnell Tate, man. Oh, man. They just keep putting him out. Yeah. Of course, this team he's surrounded by talent. It is what it is. Right. He's third on the team in receptions last year, yards and touchdowns. Jeremiah Smith is returning. They added Max Clare to their tight end spot. But they are losing Emeka Ibuka, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. All those guys are leaving. So Carnell Tate has a chance to be, the wide receiver 2 on this team and really take a big step up. And I think that that's really important for him. He's a high contested rate guy, catch rate guy, 60%. Good with the ball after the catch, doesn't drop the ball, willingness to block, willingness to run, which, first off, Ohio State does an amazing job blocking. They make their guys get after it in the blocking, and so that's always good to see. Willingness, though, to run across the middle of the field gives the coach, give the wide receiver coach a raise. Basically, this man needs to, get a head coaching job now. That's kind of how I look at it. But I love how tempoed he is in routes. It looks good in intermediate and short routes. Very comfortable against zone. He just does everything. And then he's 6'3", on top of all that stuff, which is great to see. So I think it's pretty good. I think that Carnell Tate is another Ohio State player that will go early and do really well because give the coach a raise, like I said.
Yeah. At this point, if you were a wide receiver at Ohio State, you kind of get locked into a draft pick just because of what they continue to do year after year.
Yep.
Between these two, though, I think Antonio Williams has more potential just because he has Cade Klubnik throwing to him. And that's just because of how high I'm viewing Cade Klubnik. And that Williams will probably be the wide receiver 1 on that team with Cade Klubnik.
Good team.
Versus Tate, obviously behind Jeremiah Smith, but I think he will be the wide receiver 2 on it.
Right. Well, Clemson, good team, and a lot of game time, important plays going to Antonio Williams. Yeah, I get it.
Oh,
I think both these guys are first rounders. I was going to actually say for this position, I had, 4 locked in first rounders in my personal opinion. That's Eric Singleton, Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, who's on here, and Denzel Boston. But then right after that, possible first rounders. The first one next is Antonio Williams, KC, Kevin Conception, Eugene, Trey Wilson, Nick Harbor, Elijah Surratt, DeAndre Moore, if he does show up, and then Jeremy Bernard. All those guys, I think, have opportunities to be first rounders. That's how good this is a pretty good wide receiver class. There's just no elite number 1, top 5 guy. But
Yeah.
I think this is a really good receiver class overall.
No, absolutely. I agree.
So let me stop sharing. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us for this hour. We will be doing, that's obviously going to be our longest video for all of these position things, because this was, of course, the quarterbacks, the running backs, and the wide receivers, everybody's favorite fantasy options coming up in Dynasty and all those things later on. So this was our longest by far. But we appreciate y'all hanging out with us, and I love doing these videos. I hope Dustin does too. And we're going to be doing more of them. Like we said, we're going to get into the offensive line, tight ends, and the interior offensive lines next week. Then we'll start on defense. Then we'll do a mock draft. All kinds of fun stuff for the 2026 prospects.
Yep. I am really looking forward to jumping through all the other ones and continuing our fun commentary on it all.
Yep, absolutely. But we will see y'all on the next one. Please like, comment, and subscribe on this video if you haven't yet. We really appreciate it. It helps us out a lot.
Thank y'all very much for joining us.